My name is Charles Ramos. I'm the CEO, president of CR Dynamics and Associates, Inc. We're a 15-year-old call center outsourcing company located here in downtown Baltimore. Associations I've been associated with, I've been part of, I'm just wrapping up my second year as the president of the Baltimore Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Been a fantastic, rewarding experience. I've been recently joined the ATA, the American Teleservices Association. At the end of the day, after it's all said and done, CR Dynamics is my passion. It's a business I built on my kitchen table. Uh, Probably didn't know any better. Didn't really. I had a dream, but didn't realize what I was getting into. Took $5,000, parlayed it. Um, I can tell you, this year's been tough. We went from having our best year ever in sales to not our worst, but definitely not one of our best in just 11 short months. Um, I would say, fortunately, since it's a leadership piece, having built a business uh, from such obscure roots to where we've gotten to, you never want to slide backwards, but at least we know what it's like to take the hard lumps and the hard knocks. So we're just gonna try and ride it out. I heard someone say I was in New Orleans at the National Minority Supply Development Council. Oh, I'm sorry, another passion of mine. And someone had said it's best. An entrepreneur is just somebody who hasn't run out of their money yet. That's really all it is. We haven't quite run out of our money yet, but this year took a hit on us, and we're just gonna go back and rebuild and go back to our basics and what got us started. I think we have to look at what makes an entrepreneur anyway. What makes somebody leap? Usually, it's. I think most entrepreneurs don't start off with a good story. I mean, think about it. Most of us either worked for somebody at one point in time, or we may have worked in our parents' businesses at one time, and somewhere along the line, something just snaps and says, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do this on my own. I struck out on my own, used the skills that I had, and I think, like most entrepreneurs, very early on, you feel you can take on the world. It's going to be your show. You're going to do it the way you want to do it, and everything's just going to fall into place. And the world's going to love you, and it's going to be wonderful, and everybody's going to buy your product because you're a nice guy. After a while, you learn that you have to make some tough decisions, some decisions that are unpopular, and especially when it comes to building your team and bringing on employees, and people have different agendas. I can tell you, when I first started out, people joined my company because they thought I was a nice guy and I had a great idea and I was a fun guy to be around. As the company grew and we became more and more serious, and you attract more people to your team, you realize, people don't join your company because they think you're a nice guy or just because it's a neat place to work. They're in it for the money. And they're in it for what's in it, what can I do? What can you do to help me get to my next level? So I've had to come full circle and just realize that, we still have a good thing. We still deliver great product. We stand behind our service. We've got a lot of dedicated people, but just the dynamics change a little bit. You really have to really understand what is your goal, what's your vision, how are you going to carry out that vision, and how can you continue to motivate those people that saw that something in you to begin with and keep them motivated to continue to want to do a good job. As your organization grows and becomes successful, people are going to come and go. I used to take that personally. I don't anymore. People have their own self-interest, and there's nothing wrong with that. The trick is to find people that have their own self-interest that's common with yours, and that's not easy to do. But when you do find folks that are like-minded and have like interests, it does kind of make your job as the leader, as the sales guy, easier to sell because it's easier to get people to go along with it. Um, but if not, it's I don't take that personally anymore. It's like, well, great doing business with you. I appreciate you having on the staff. You might have brought some good ideas to the table, but it's time to move on. It's time to move on. When it's the bottom line and it's a business and you're responsible for writing that check, at the end of the day, there can only be one boss and there can only be one decision maker. And, you try to be as open to ideas and as empathetic as possible. But at the end of the day, decisions have to be made, and that's just kind of the way it is. And I think young people today, I mean, let's face it, we're living in a time that's been pretty good. No major depressions. I mean, right now we're in a major recession, but for the last, I can tell you my experiences. I'm 48 years old. I can't really recall any major, detriments to our economy. Maybe in the 70s, but we've had it pretty darn good. And I think young folks today, they don't. Sometimes they don't appreciate the things that got us to where we are today: the work ethic, the dependability issues, the responsibility issues. So a lot of times, I think that's what you'll run into. With folks in general, people in general that may come into your organization and may not have that mindset. So you make a decision. You can either teach them that mindset, or there may be problems. And that's just part of leadership. But you give me a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed young gal, young man that wants to work, is personally responsible, understands dollars and cents, understands consequences, understands that there are consequences to your actions. I could build an empire with people like that. I think in particular, the Baltimore Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and the Hispanic business community is still searching for an identity. I mean, what do we mean? What is our impact? What do we bring to the table? I think the common mistake that the outside community makes, that means anyone that's not Hispanic makes, is that we all tend to get lumped into the same bucket. And we're an extremely diverse community. Most of us don't even look like each other. So it's not like you can point to say, well, they're African American or they're white and this is what they do. You'll look at the diversity within the Hispanic community alone, and it looks like the rest of the planet. You look at a Hispanic family, and one brother may not look like the next brother. Aunts and uncles and cousins, they don't look like each other. Okay, and that's just part of the diversity we have. Now, you take that within the context of one family, and you start lumping in all the other nationalities that happen to be Hispanic. And that's a very key point, nationalities that happen to be Hispanic. There's a saying that, we're many races but one culture. Right? So now you start to look at just the dynamics of dealing with Puerto Ricans and Cubans and Guatemalans and Mexicans. They all have different needs. But it's hard to describe that to the outside community. So let's go back. So you have all these different tribes, if you will, that coexist under the same banner, saying we're Hispanic. But at the end of the day, it's, how do we work together? How do we develop leaders? How do you get away from infighting, if you will? And it tends to be a very masculine, parochial, culture that tends to be very independent, okay, very stand on your own. So when you get a bunch of these organizations together and say, hey, let's wave our flag, there's challenges there. Other challenges that I notice within our community, our chamber, is it's an all-volunteer organization. So how do you get a bunch of independent-minded business people who've already got enough on their plate to volunteer to an organization, to get them to agree on something, to get them to follow through on their commitments and bring that commitment to the table so that you can move on? I would say in the 8 years that I've been involved with the BHCC, it's gone from a concept to bringing strong folks together, reaching out to the greater community, the political community, and then going to, okay, now that we've got this established in the shell, how do we start building this? How do we start building this business so that it is a business and that it is a go-to organization? Our particular chamber has come a long way. It really has. And I'll say that each individual president has each put their stamp on it. And it's definitely moved in a positive direction. But that's just that every president puts their own stamp on it and makes it different. So we're still learning.